Hi everyone, welcome to today's session. So we've covered in our last video, we talked on the different types of security controls. We went in depth, discussing common controls, system-specific controls, as well as hybrid controls. And remember, each time you've categorized an information system, you should be able to identify the control types. Once you've identified your baseline, you also want to come up with the control types. And when you are working as an assessor, also remember you should be able to determine the control types so as to assess. Many a times, maybe you want to focus on hybrid as well as system specific portion, and especially if it's hybrid where that system is receiving some form of inheritance from another system. You want to be careful to make sure you also receive the system specific portion for that system so as to validate the efficacy of the controls. So once you've identified the information, the control types, you also want to know the control statuses, right? The status of the control. Because if it's a new system, you've identified all of these. Remember, I said we are heading towards the point of developing SOP and already talked based on our SSP, System Security Plan. So your System Security Plan is your living artifact, is your living document where you start documenting everything from the ground up. Okay, so once we've identified the security control types, then we also want to define the control statuses. So I'll share my screen then so that we can quickly go on this. All right. So understanding control statuses, plan, implemented, and non-applicable. We have three types, okay? So you want to first understand, once you've identified all your baseline controls, you identify those controls that are inheritable. Okay, you're not really going to stress about those because you are inheriting them from older system, but you have to document it on your SSP. And then you also want to give the control statuses because if it's a system specific control or it's a hybrid control, then you need to come up with a control status. For a new system, you want to be able to plan that control. Planning means that if it's a system system or organization that they have like agile methodology, they work with project managers and scrum masters. These are a good project where they can actually, integrate or put it in all their spring, is it iteration or something, right? So once you have those plan controls, you need to be able to come up with a time frame, expected time frame where those controls will be implemented. And that's why this slide says that in cybersecurity, controls are implemented to safeguard systems and ensure compliance, right? I've always said that controls are proactive measures put in place to protect organization assets. And from our previous videos, you cannot achieve compliance without implementing security controls, right? Without managing your risks. So for you to be able to achieve compliance, then you need to make sure that your system is working, is functional, is operating those control design, they're working as they're supposed to work. The status of these controls is crucial to understand their progress and effectiveness, very important. And the reason I also say so, even you are working as an assessor, you also want to check their SSP, because there are times that you will see some controls has been implemented, but they've not yet updated their SSP. When you go to the control status, it will tell you plan. And that's what you want to follow up, because each time they have a control status as plan, then you need to come up with POEM, plan of action and milestone. POEM is not just about vulnerabilities, so you track the progress of like your projects, the different projects that you guys will be working on, right? So, for example, the key one is, we have key three control statuses. We have plan, we have implemented, as well as non-applicable. So, for plan control, what does it entail? A plan control status refers to controls that have been identified but have not yet been implemented. These controls are part of the organization's strategy and roadmap, but are still in the planning test. Remember, at this point, this is a new system. You've identified all your baseline controls, you identify all the control types, and then you also start developing your SSP. Then you also need to come up with, document a control status. So at this point, they are all planned. So it's set for a high system. You have over, so let's just say you have over 1,000 controls. So you also need to plan how those controls will be implemented, right? You don't just push it. So what role do you work as a GRC analyst here? Your job is to collaborate, right? You collaborate with cross-functional teams. You work with different stakeholders, different technical folks to ensure that those controls are implemented. And that's why when you put plan, you've already created a poem that's plan of action and milestone to track the progress of or the completion of this control to make sure they are being implemented. And that's why I say when to use during the initial stages of cybersecurity project or system development, when preparing for future risk mitigation and compliance requirement you get. So during that initial phase, we have to do it. For example, say an organization plans to implement multi-factor authentication across all systems, but has not yet rolled it out. So that is something that they have it on their queue, they have it on their radar, that they'll have to implement this control. But because they've not yet rolled it out, it's put the status as planned. But the fact that you put it as planned, again, you need to have a time frame as to when these controls will be implemented. For implemented control, it already says, right? Implemented means this control has been implemented. And implemented control states to indicate that a control has fully deployed and is functioning and as intended to mitigate risks. When to use it? After a control has been designed, tested, and fully applied to the system. When the control is actively in place, contributing to the organization's security posture. So if you go to the RMF life cycle, so far, we'll be able to categorize information systems. We'll be able to select security controls. The next phase is to implement those controls. That's the third phase of your RMF life cycle. So implementation of security control, and that's where it comes handy. Once we'll be able to identify, put our control statuses as planned. Once those controls are being implemented, then we move to step 4. Each time they're implemented, you also have to test the control. And that's why they say that it's been designed, tested, and fully applied to the system. Once you've tested those controls and those controls are working, then you know that control has been implemented, right? And when a control is actively in place and contributing to organization security posture, for example, encryption is implemented on sensitive database to protect data at rest. And the best form of encryption is advanced standard encryption 256. Why for data in transit, you use TLS 1.3, right? So again, implementation or implemented control status, these are control that has fully been deployed and they are operational, they are working, right? And most ISSO, when they go and they access security controls, many times you're going to be doing plan control just to check the efficacy of those security controls. Then for not applicable, the word says, right, it means it's not applicable for your system. So non-applicable status is used when a specific control does not apply to a particular system, environment, or organization. This could be because the control is irrelevant to the system's functionality or security requirement. When to use it? If the system does not handle the type of data or risks the control is designed to protect, if the control is not relevant due to system architecture, technology, or scope. Example, a control for physical security like biometry might not be applicable for cloud systems that do not involve physical access. So that even says it, right? Because biometry, maybe just say your badge, you're able to log in the cloud system, you do not need that. And that's why they say the control is not applicable. So why is this important? As I said, if you're working as an ISO or whatever your role is, you need to be able to understand that each time, especially when you have a new system, you need to follow this format, because once you identify those controls, you have to go through the plan phase. You plan, and each time you are planning, you also need to have an expected time when that control will be fully implemented. And your poem can help you do that. I'm saying so because our next video we will go through a poem. But before we even go through a poem, we're just going to discuss a poem. Then the next video will focus on learning how to develop security policies and also how to write implementation statements or narrative, right? So each time you have that, you also have to document it on your policy. Remember, at this point, your SSP is still on the draft phase. So you start updating that information. And then once you've tracked that in your poem, based on the time period that you guys have, if that control is implemented, and then they've tested the control and the control is functional, then you have to go to your SSP and update the control status from plan to implemented. And there are times that I've accessed security controls. You'll see some controls that they say the control is planned, but you go to the implementation statement, so that I mean, yeah, that control has been implemented, but when you go to their implementation narrative or statement or SSP, it still tells you that that control is planned. And I'm going to fail it because at the end of the day, for you to be in compliance, you need to follow all the steps, right? The fact that it's implemented, why is your policy say that it's planned? So go back to your policy and you have to update the control because you need to have the most accurate status on your SSP. Okay, so this is a short video about control statuses. Hope you all learned something. Again, if you're new to our channel, make sure you subscribe, you like, you share with your friends. I appreciate you all for sharing and tuning in. Again, we have a lot of exciting videos on our way. So make sure, stay tuned. I'll see you all in the next video. Bye for now.